By the end of this video, the parts of the Concealed Carry Permit Exam California that confuse everyone are going to make complete sense. That's the deal. We're moving past the dry legal text and walking through real-life situations like traffic stops and gun-free zones so you aren't caught off guard. I'll show you exactly how the exam tries to trip you up on use of force laws. Let's get into it. I remember when I first looked at the California Penal Code and thought, there's no way I'm going to remember all these nuances. It feels heavy until you see it in action. Today, we're going to look at this through the lens of an examiner who wants to see if you actually understand the responsibility, not just if you can memorize a line of text. Right? Quick reset. Imagine you're walking to your car at night and someone starts screaming at you, getting closer and closer, but they don't have a visible weapon. Okay. An examiner is going to phrase a question here to see if you'll jump the gun, literally. They'll ask if you can draw your weapon because you feel threatened. The trap is the word feel. In California, the law requires an objective, reasonable fear of imminent death or great bodily injury. What I see students do is confuse being scared with being in legal danger. If a guy is just yelling insults from 10 feet away, is your life actually ending? Probably not. Now here's the thing that surprises people. California is technically a stand-your-ground state via jury instructions, but the exam loves to test your avoidance mindset. The examiner might ask if you're required to run away before using force. While you don't have a legal duty to retreat in your home or even in public if the threat is real, the wrong answer is often tempting because we think being a hero is the goal. Actually, let me back up. The goal is always de-escalation. If the question offers retreating safely as an option, it's often looking to see if you understand that lethal force is the absolute last resort. Stay with me here, because this next one is a logistical nightmare if you don't know the boundaries. You're driving to pick up a package and your GPS takes you right past the local high school. The examiner is going to test your knowledge of the 1,000-foot rule. They love to ask about incidental travel. Quick context. While you have a permit, California's SB 2 and the Federal Gun-Free School Zones Act have specific overlapping rules. The thing nobody tells you is that just being on a public sidewalk adjacent to a school can be a violation depending on your specific permit restrictions. I used to think as long as it was in my holster, I was fine. But the exam wants to know if you can identify sensitive places where your permit essentially goes dormant. While we're on this, let's take a quick detour into federal property. You'll see questions about carrying in a post office parking lot. Most people think, it's a public building, I'm good. Wrong. Federal law is incredibly strict here, and a California CCW doesn't override the federal ban on firearms in post offices, including the parking lot. I've seen people lose their rights because they forgot their gun was in the glove box while they ran in to buy stamps. Does the examiner want to catch you on this? Absolutely. Okay, buckle up. This next bit catches even experienced candidates because the law and best practice often get blurred. You're pulled over for a simple cracked windshield and you're carrying. Now, here's the thing. Here's a major common trap warning. In California, there's no statewide statute that says you must immediately tell an officer you're carrying. However, and this is a huge however, most issuing agencies, like your local sheriff, make it a condition of your permit. The examiner will ask if it's a legal requirement or a permit condition. If you miss that distinction, you fail. I always tell people, just because it's not a state law doesn't mean you won't lose your permit for staying silent. Keep your hands on the wheel and be a human being, right? Let me put it another way. What happens if the officer asks to take your weapon for officer safeties? The exam wants to know if you understand your rights versus the reality of a traffic stop. You're generally required to comply with lawful orders. If you start arguing about the Fourth Amendment on the side of the 405, you're going to have a bad day. The examiner looks for answers that prioritize safety and clear communication. What I see students do is get defensive. Don't. Just describe where the weapon is and let them take the lead. Now, let's finish strong with the scenario that happens after you get home. You're tired, you take your holster off, and you set it on the nightstand while you jump in the shower. Look, California is extremely aggressive about storage laws, especially if children are in the home. An examiner will give you a scenario where a child could gain access. You don't even need an accident to happen to be charged with a crime. The trap here is thinking that out of reach is the same as secured. It's not. If it's not in a locked container or disabled with a trigger lock and a minor gets it, that's on you. It sounds harsh, but that's the standard you're being tested on. Okay, you guys. Wait, why would you transport without a permit if you're taking this exam? Because maybe you're in a sensitive zone or your permit is suspended. The examiner will ask how to legally move a gun in a vehicle without using your CCW privileges. The answer is always locked container, unloaded, and not in the utility or glove compartment. Even with a permit, knowing the non-permit's way to carry is a common safety check on the test. It's about redundancy. We've covered the big ones, the difference between feeling scared and being in actual danger, the headache of school zones, how to handle the police without losing your cool, and why you're safe at home is your best legal defense. These scenarios are exactly how the real test filters out people who aren't ready for the responsibility. Quick recap. Do you remember the main idea from each chapter? If even one is fuzzy, that's the chapter to drill tonight. Free concealed carry permit exam, California practice tests are waiting on CCWExam.com. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. You've got this. Just keep practicing those scenarios.